name is Cherokee Isles, and I'm here with my guest and friend, Carrie Westover. I have been in the depths of despair after having babies die. I have lived with my own regrets, and I have met literally thousands of parents who have also been haunted by regrets. Regrets that were influenced by caring staff, doctors, midwives, doulas, childbirth educators, who did not help them enough to be fully informed, who maybe did not present choices as well as they could, who maybe did not give appropriate self-help materials at the time, and some of whom did not serve as wise, prepared, competent guides. Those regrets can get in the way of healthy family grieving. Trust me, the stories are raw and oh so painful. I have also, though, met parents who have few or no regrets, and the peace they carry at knowing they had the best experience possible despite the tragedy of not having taken their baby, their beloved baby, home. It's so clear and wonderful to see. They had caregivers who were not only compassionate, but really knew how to be their guide in the jungle of the choices and the options, the decisions, as they said hello and goodbye to their loved baby. And that's why I'm here, to inform and to inspire, in hopes of helping more people have that latter experience so that they can build then the foundation of their healing on solid ground that begins when they hear the news, all the way through the hospital stay, preparation for going home, and beyond. For this session, I've taken a few topics, and we will dwell on those and dig down into those topics, but there are so many, many more to be aware of in helping and trying to understand better how to help families when they have a baby die. But I'd like to begin by setting the stage. I am privileged to have a resource from Julie Fritsch, a sculptor and mother of a baby who died, Justin. And this special resource is something that I try to share all the time when I do trainings, when I'm trying to reach doctors and help families to understand that they are not alone. And so I'd like to share just a few slides of this 15-minute, normally it's a 15-minute DVD. The Anguish of Loss is a DVD and a book, and from Julie and myself as the publisher and support to Julie as she did this book, it's a message of love and loss. It is indeed a powerful, poignant, sacred journey from the depths of loss to forever. To also set the stage, because I do believe that knowing why really matters here. Why to do this work, why to help families, why your role can be so very, very critical. I'd like to read a poem. A death has occurred and everything is changed. We are painfully aware that life can never be the same again, that yesterday is over, that relationships once rich have ended. But there is another way to look upon this truth. If life now went on the same, without the presence of the one who has died, we could only conclude that the life we remember made no contribution, filled no space, meant nothing. The fact that this person left behind a place that cannot be filled is a high tribute to this individual. Life can be the same after a trinket has been lost, but never after the loss of a treasure. As we prepare then to talk about what it is that a baby loss doula, a companion, an advocate can do for families, I would like you to think about the many facets that it takes to do that well. And where I'd like to begin is to explain what a baby loss doula, a companion, a parent's advocate, what that is, what it could look like, and where it has developed from. A baby loss doula is a loss navigator who is compassionate, well-trained and informed, knows resources, and is able to understand the needs at the time and beyond the moment. She shares the why behind decisions and options. She shares the pros and the cons behind the options and the situations that are about to happen, so that when people go through them, they have a better preparation for what is to come. And she makes sure that the decisions and the experience, the meeting, the greeting, the being with, the saying goodbye, that it includes the larger extended family. This little slide shows Journey Peace. I had the privilege of being a baby loss doula to Heather and Alan. And I met Journey Peace, a baby who was miscarried, who had died in miscarriage at 6 weeks. This was probably about 8 weeks. And they had to have a D&C in order to meet their baby. They chose not to look at the remains of Journey Peace, but if you look really closely there, he's in a plastic jar that they give at the hospital, but he's wrapped in a warm little outfit and a blanket, sitting in a cradle with that lammy behind him, and that's his mommy Heather's hands, and actually his daddy Alan's hand. And there they are. This was their 4th miscarriage, and the one that was done the best, they tell me, because they had a doula and a baby loss doula, and because we honored this baby in such a special way that the others were not honored in. Those were just your typical in and out of ER or at-home miscarriages. Their family, their children, or other children were involved. We made sure that there was a blessing and all sorts of beautiful things that happened. A baby loss doula, a companion, advocate, call them whatever you might, is something that is growing in concept and pretty exciting in the country right now, and actually in the world. This is a picture of me caring for Journey Peace beside the room while there were some procedures going on with Heather. And as a result of that and other experiences where I hear of parents who do not get the kind of care they would deserve, even when they have wonderful, kind, helpful staff, because maybe they didn't believe the staff, or maybe they couldn't hear, or they needed to hear it from someone who'd been through it. You know, who knows really why. My partner in business with me, Pat Flynn, who's an awesome, amazing woman, together we had this same idea. We need to create something, a companion of sorts, a preparer, a navigator who could be beside people, be it on the phone, on the internet, in person, at the time, before the loss, at the time, and afterwards. And we called Penny Simpkins and got her blessing, which was awesome. And we got encouragement from DONA and other organizations, and from lots of doulas. And so all of that brought us to the place where what we decided to do was to create a certification program for baby loss doulas. We have rigorous standards. In a few minutes, you'll hear a little bit possibly from Carrie, who actually went through the training and is going through this process right now. It's 23 hours of training. They read over 30 books and booklets. They have an application, references, mentors, practical experience. There's just a lot to this rigorous program. And then at the end, they will be available for hospitals to call, for parents to call, for family members to call, to be a partner maybe for a doula who isn't so trained, or for doulas to become a baby loss certified doula. We also are working on a postpartum loss doula. If you visit our website, you'll get more details. You can also go to the Find a Baby Loss Doula, and you will find a list of people who are willing to help over the phone or in person. Our trainers come to your community if you have 10 people or more. So in case you're interested in something like that, you are welcome to contact us. But we believe that trusted doulas need to be prepared well to help families upon hearing the news and beyond. Parents deserve no less, and doulas will appreciate, we think, such competency. What's the role of a baby loss doula? To be a consistent caregiver throughout. We appreciate and love the social workers and the nurses and the chaplains who step up and do the right thing for families, but they're pretty much in the hospital setting. Maybe there's a great nurse at the clinic, or there's a connection between the two, which we hope to draw that concept for you today. But before and after, those folks drop off. So what a baby loss doula or companion or advocate does is they can provide consistent support throughout, and they can be an adjunct to the hospital staff, never meant to replace those beautiful people, but rather to support them if needed, and to definitely be there as the parent's advocate, to be a navigator of sort, to be a gentle guide, which is different than a doula. Yes, we'd like these families to find their voice and to be able to speak up, but we also know that when someone is in such shock as this, that it's not very easy to do, and that we really need to add a role of being an advocate and a guide, still honoring families to make their own decisions, but giving them fully informed, lots of resources. And so to offer support in community and web resources so that they know that there are so many people and groups and websites and books and videos and YouTube videos and chat rooms and Facebook groups out there. So we want the baby loss doula or that type of companion then to help prepare the families for birth, for death, to be a companion if desired and possible, because it's not always possible, but it could be. To assist with memory making, to offer suggestions like having the baby at home for a while, and to help with that transition to home. Surely there are more things that a baby loss doula can do, but these at least are some of the critical pieces. What I'd like to do now is invite Carrie to comment on this. Carrie had her own loss of Claire and Elise. And so Carrie, what thoughts do you have? What would you like to share?
Well, I guess what I would like to share most importantly is that as a bereaved parent, my journey has been long, but I do think that if there would have been a baby loss doula companion at the hospital with me to kind of guide my family in terms of putting the brakes on a little bit and slow it down. My water broke before I had even gotten to the hospital, so maybe it would have been nice if I were to have known about a baby loss doula, that someone could have come with me there, and maybe I could have gone home and talked to my son at the time, who was 2.5, about what was going on, and to help him kind of understand and plan out what we're going to do. Because in the beginning you're so shocked. Yeah. You don't know what to do, and you're kind of struggling to really even wrap your brain around it. So to have someone that would be there to guide you and help you and give you options that you wouldn't have thought about otherwise, because no one plans to bury their child. And so just having that opportunity to slow it down a bit and have someone help you on that journey.
Thank you. Do you think that you could have made the call if they'd said, oh, there's someone who can help you, that you could have made that call on your own, or do you think you'd need the hospital staff to maybe make that call for you?
One of my family members most definitely could have done that for me. I don't know that I could have myself made that phone call, but if someone had said, would you like me to call or do that on your behalf, I probably would have appreciated that. Now, at first, I might have said, no, I think I'm okay. But I think with a little bit more guidance and some coaching in terms of that, I do think that I would have wanted to and had them come.
Okay, so are you suggesting that it would have helped if they explained the why and gave you
Yes.
some more information rather
Yes.
than just a yes or no question?
Yeah, because so often they'll ask you an open-ended question, and I'm going to tell you no every single time. And they just let that be. Okay, well, the parents have said no. But to constantly go back to them and give them their options and the reasons and the experiences that they've had with other families that have done this, and how those families have benefited from having a baby loss doula person there to help guide them.
Mm-hmm. Funny, that happened to me too. I said no. My husband and I said no to everything. That's really a common thing. Have you heard that from other people too?
Lots of people. Mm-hmm.
So we need to be convinced. We need to be told why. We need to be encouraged, and the staff needs to dare to take that step to go further like that. Okay. Right. Anything else that you want to share before we move on to the slowing it down part?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. The one question I was thinking about, though, is what about a baby loss doula or companion who is called, who maybe hasn't been prepared well, or maybe
right.
who hasn't, doesn't quite know all of what you're going through? Would that have been okay too?
No, that wouldn't have been okay. I think in that situation, you are very vulnerable, and you are creating life memories for that family. And if a doula were to go in there fully not prepared, it could have negative, even more negative effects. Even myself, as going through the training myself and being a bereaved parent, I'm still learning how to do that, and I don't quite feel ready myself to go into a hospital setting where there's been a loss. And I've experienced it firsthand, and so it is important that people really understand the process and really understand what parents are going through and what they're thinking, and all the options and things that are available to them that can help them create those memories for their children and their families.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's move on to what's the rush. I put this slide up here for you to really look at this accident scene. It's horrible, isn't it? And that's the analogy that I'd like to share with you. Imagine that someone has just been in this traumatic car accident, and they must now make decisions in the middle of this accident scene. In other words, they're rushing off to the hospital, sometimes within minutes of hearing the news their baby has died, sometimes within hours, but hours are nothing. They're like minutes, they're like seconds. And the question the questions that will be asked are these kinds of questions. And so I want you to just imagine for a minute that you have been in an accident scene. Maybe you have been in an accident. And I want you to think hard about what that was like, what emotions you're going through, how crazy it is, and waiting for someone to come, and then the sirens come, and then people stand beside you and they say, well, who should we call? Well, what funeral director shall we call? Do you want to see your child now? Because maybe it was your child who died in that, heaven forbid, died in that accident. Do you want your child to go to the hospital first or straight to the funeral home? Shall we take a lock of hair? What other mementos do you want? Where are your other children? Should someone drive them to meet you? Stop. Wait. Wouldn't you want to say, where am I? What just happened? Is this an accident? How did this happen? Who are you? I can't hear you. What did you say? And that's what it's like for people like Carrie, for people like myself, for the many, many families that we have spoken with. It's like being in the middle of this shock and drama and crazy, awful, painful, you've got to be kidding me, screaming kind of time in our lives. And people are trying to ask us in decisions, important decisions. And so I ask you, can you be a part of talking with folks in your community, your doctors, your nurses, your midwives? As a doula, can you be a part of saying, well, what is the rush? Unless it's an emergency. Mom is bleeding profusely, the baby has died during labor. There are some of those situations which, of course, we need to exclude. But even in Carrie's situation, her water broke, she's at the hospital, the baby's died. What's the rush? For families who learn at the ultrasound or in the clinic, Mom often would drive herself. And so what could be the difference if we go from that accident scene to trying to gain a little more serenity? Mom would not have to drive herself to the hospital. Maybe she could wait there while Dad gets there, or her sister or her mother comes, because often moms are sitting there alone. What if there could be some birth preferences planning to be done ahead of time, where they could be prepared for what's to come? And that plan, that flexible preferences, that vision could be shared with the hospital staff prior to their even getting there. What if it would help the parents be less afraid because now they have a little sense, a chance to take some breaths, a chance to think about what's happening, a chance to have someone to speak with them, a chance to feel less afraid because they know a little of what's to come. What if they could, like Carrie mentioned, have gotten their children settled? There is nothing worse than having a mother, daddies too, but I'm going to say a mommy, worried about her children at home, not settled, not knowing what's going on, and then in the middle of this crisis. And so the comfort of calming that chaos by going and talking to Ian and being at home with their children, getting them a babysitter, making calls in the privacy of their home to the grandparents, to the sister, to the good friend, to the brother. Having someone call work, maybe dad could call work for mom, maybe grandma calls work for mom, but letting work know. Packing a bag, I mean a meaningful bag, packing intentionally what should be in that bag, including a camera, including a video camera, including some stuffed animals or precious little toys or clothes that they're going to be able to then dress and undress their baby with later. What if...
Can I say something about that?
Absolutely.
One thing that I know that I would most definitely would have liked to do in terms of slowing it down was, like when you were saying, bringing certain things to the hospital and having that opportunity, because one of my biggest regrets is not having enough time to parent Claire while I was in the hospital. Now, there's never enough time in this world because our children aren't here with us, but at least I would have more quality time if I would have had, you know, a chance to do that more at the hospital if we would have slowed things down.
Right. Instead, you're an accident victim.
Right.
And you're not able to be a parent who's been in an accident, who's been you're in a crisis situation, but the focus then could move more to being the parent and doing those parenting things rather than being on the bed and the receiver of the care from the Coast Guard or the EMTs, or in this case, the nurses and the social workers and the doctors or midwives.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Very good suggestion. And then there could be more time for the family to get there, you know, because maybe a day or two later this could happen where the induction occurs. And so the out-of-town relatives could come, the best friend that's 6 hours away. You know, we could build and establish that support team and put them in place before the rush and all of this crazy, confusing, painful, overwhelming experience occurs. And I want to talk about Methodist Hospital. I am so excited about Methodist Hospital in Minneapolis, where they are taking people to higher levels because they help them birth plan. They actually pay their staff for a couple of hours of birth planning ahead of time. They show them the video that I'm going to mention to you ahead of time. And when possible, and people are able and willing, they slow it down. And the staff nurses, the doctors have said, this was the best situation that it could have been. I've never seen how in control mom and dad were. We've taken them to such higher levels rather than just trying to do the very basic things of explaining why picture taking is important. They're already past that, and they're going to higher places. So I want you to see what role you can have in helping to slow it down. The video that I just mentioned, I Hardly Knew You, What Happens Next, is a video that I created because of my frustration with how slowly things go here. Let me back up, with how quickly things go here and the regrets that people have. So this is a slow it down video. I have a 10-minute video that we'll be showing you shortly to help you understand what the 19-minute video can do for the families, the parents at the clinic, or maybe they go over to the hospital and sit with their baby loss doula, or with a staff nurse, or with a chaplain, a social worker, and they watch that video and talk through. Take a pause, think about it, you know, have a little tea and talk through what could be happening next and what their choices are and what their decisions are that's coming forward. So when could this video be watched and by whom? Well, it could be watched shortly after the news that their baby has died at the ultrasound at the clinic. For miscarriage, for stillbirth, not just for someone who's continuing the pregnancy and we know that baby may die or may not live very long, may die before birth or after birth. But it also could be helpful to people who have other kinds of sudden losses and really might get into that rush mode, and the point of it is to help them to slow down. The purpose is to affirm their feelings of shock and disbelief and sadness and their parenthood, to offer stories and the why behind the preparation, because preparation then gives them a little bit of control and awareness about what is ahead. It helps explain the importance of the decisions for future healing. And it promotes a dialogue, because the dialogue is what's real important here, the dialogue between the caregivers and the families. Hi, my name is Cherokee Isles. I have had a miscarriage, a full-term stillbirth, an ectopic pregnancy, and the birth of 2 living children. For the past almost 3 decades, I have been working with staff, helping them to be better at supporting families and giving compassionate care when a baby dies, and directly helping families so that they might create memories, say hello and goodbye in a beautiful way to their baby so that they may heal over time. The purpose of this video is to offer guidance and support to families who have had a baby die, who have been recently told that their baby has died, or due to serious anomalies their baby may die. And this section is done in particular for you, to help you support the families and to help introduce this video to them. But before I begin, what I'd like to say is that I am so sorry that you and your staff have had to go through this horrible loss. I'm sure that you've done everything you could to help this family have a healthy baby. What a horrible shock it is for all of you. And it's our aim with this video to help slow down the process, to help support the family in making better decisions that will provide them the foundation for healing over time. Everything matters right now, what is said and what is done. Please help them not rush off to the hospital right away, where they will make critical decisions, sometimes regretful decisions, because they are couched in the shock and the drama and they can hardly think. Your guidance is key in telling them the why behind decisions such as going home for a few days or a few hours. And that, if they understand the why, it will help them make more informed decisions. So what you do right now is kind of critical, as I say. Please help them prepare for what is next, to make well thought out decisions as they birth their baby, as they say hello, and as they work towards saying goodbye. In that process, hopefully they will create good memories. What I have now for you are some specific suggestions that you and your staff may consider while the family is still in your facility. Keep this in mind. In a recent stillbirth study, 93% of women described this loss as the worst thing that has ever happened to them. I can relate to that, having lived through this myself. And this is real. We need to remember this is hard and this is overwhelming to them. So shock immediately will set in, and the parents may not hear much of what you say, which is why it's important to have things in writing, and specifically to offer such things as this video, because it can add to what you offer them and what they're able to take in. The words that you use and your compassionate sentiment are very, very important now, and people remember that. They want to feel connected to you. Some options of things that you could say are, I am so sorry, or I am so sad that this has happened. I will help you make it through this. Or this is not what we thought or we planned. Whoever thought that this could happen? Sadly, it does. And yet there is so little we know about miscarriage and stillbirth. But I will answer your questions to the best of my ability. What you're doing with that is you are offering them confidence, comfort and confidence and hope that you will be with them, or you will find someone to be with them, and that they can make it through this. And that's very, very important. Early on, I think it's important that you ask them if they want to be alone for a while or if they want to have someone with them. You can suggest that you'll come back in a few minutes, but sometimes people just need to process this by themselves. Other times they're afraid of being alone. So you could encourage them to either be alone for a little bit and you come back, or stay with them. Or invite a staff member, a nurse maybe, or a social worker, whoever's on your staff, to sit with them. You could offer to call someone on their behalf, to bring someone in case they need extra support, or they're a single mom, or in case they need someone to drive them. Should they be driving? Now there's a very important question to ponder. There's often a real interest in the cause. I find, especially by dads, they want to focus on the cause. And yet that for most people this discussion is too much too soon. So I like to encourage you to suggest then that you will talk about that at a later point in time. Maybe at the hospital if they're ready for that, though I don't think most are, or shortly thereafter after they go home. So if you give them some comfort that that's coming, but that maybe right now we need to focus on what's happening, at least maybe they'll feel better about that. So as you help them focus on what has happened and what will soon be happening, I'd like to urge you to speak about physical, emotional, and spiritual, if you feel comfortable with that. Or make sure that your team does. that we don't just focus on physical. Now keep in mind, they will need to know physically what's going to happen. Is mom going to go into labor? Will there be some drugs involved? Can she wait? Is it an emergency? Fewer than 11% of women have been told by their caregivers about stillbirth, and fewer than 48% have been told specifically about miscarriage. What that means is they may have heard about it from someone else, but from their caregiver, they don't know what is coming. They don't know enough about this, and so they're going to rely on you or your staff to help them understand what happens now. Be sure to give them written materials such as my books Empty Arms or Miscarriage: A Shattered Dream, or Pat Schweibert's books When Hello Means Goodbye or Too Soon a Memory. And that will help them to prepare and make decisions. Those books are purposely written for that. Please understand, though, that simply giving them a list, if you decide to give them a list of decisions or a list of what is physically about to happen, that's not enough. They need background information, they need the whys, and ideally they need input from other parents in order to more fully understand what is happening and what to do. And I think it helps them actually to believe more because it's both medical care providers, something in writing, and parents telling them this. So, the combination of all three would be really important. Seriously consider calling in a parent advocate, a support parent. We sometimes call them a parent companion. A recent study has shown that 75% of women who had a stillbirth want to talk with someone else with a similar diagnosis. And 71% of these women in the study wish they had a parent support, a peer companion immediately. And so I hope that you will find some in your community and offer to make that call for them. I'd like to suggest that you not focus on the autopsy early in the conversations, even though the inclination might be there to do that. I think that is for later, after the baby has been born. Many care providers rush the autopsy and the funeral memorial service discussion and don't focus first on the process of the birth and the saying hello before that moving towards the goodbye. However, later, after they've had time with their baby, maybe in the hospital, in a more natural process of what is next, it might be important to encourage them to test the early remains of their miscarried babies or to test and have an autopsy on their later loss. Of course, they may or may not want to do this testing or have an autopsy because ultimately that is their decision. But if you explain some of the why, you might be able to encourage them to do it, unless, of course, it's against their religious beliefs or they are strongly against it. I'd like to wrap this up now by making a couple of thoughts, sharing a couple of thoughts with you. Please be available, be present, and be there for the birth. Many parents have felt abandoned by their caregiver who let others deliver the baby. Please don't escape, even though this is hard for you, and I know it is hard for you. Remember that your relationship is there with this couple, with this mom, and work to accept that you can be there for the rough times, the rough parts, as well as the hopeful, happy times. The respect that you will garner from the parents and the appreciation goes beyond words. And even if there is a tendency to feel blame coming your way from the parents, from the grandparents, maybe even from yourself, when you show your sensitive side, your caring and compassionate side, and you go through this with parents, they will usually forgive and let go. Studies say this, parents say this. Now remember, please, you are a very, very important person in this birth experience. These families will remember this experience and you for the rest of their lives. And so I want to thank you for caring and thank you for being there. And I hope this has helped you in some small way. Carrie, do you want to share a little bit more about the slowing it down, what you might have done, or even how quickly it happened? Was Eric there? Was your family in town? Are there some specific regrets? Whatever you'd like to say about the slowing it down idea. Anything else?
I think the biggest takeaway for me in terms of slowing it down is having the opportunity to bring Claire home. Like I had mentioned before, my son was very young at the time, and we didn't bring him into the hospital. The hospital to us didn't seem like the right setting to introduce him to his baby sister. And so for us, I think we would have loved to have brought her home if we had known that that would have been an option, so that he can be there and help care for her, and our whole family can be there to help, care for her. I also think, you asked me another part of what you said, and I'm sorry, but I lost what you had.
Well, if you had any regrets, and I guess that's one of them.
Yeah.
Or if,
and then when we did to go to the hospital, Eric came with me, and my mom and sister were at home with Ian. But as soon as we got the confirmed diagnosis that they weren't able to find a heartbeat, then my in-laws were there, and my father and my brother were in transit trying to drive from Colorado to get here. They drove through the night.
let's think about that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about what that rush does to the people who are driving, who are trying to fly, who are trying to think through packing and getting ready, and now where's their head? I mean, they have had no, and they're in a rush, they've had no time to prepare, and so what's to say there aren't lots of accidents and there aren't lots of issues with people trying to get somewhere really, really fast.
Right. Slowing it down, we could have said, that they could have, taken their time to get there, even though they still probably would, my dad, I'm sure, would have still felt anxious to hurry up and get to me, but there wouldn't be as such a rush, and then he could have been there for her actual birth. He didn't get there until the following day.
So they missed important parts
and for
like
me, I needed him there so desperately, and he wasn't able to get there till the next day. And so that for me was
That's
really
a loss.
hard.
That's a loss for him and a loss for you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned taking Claire home. This is something that we're definitely working on to try to open up the doors in the minds of the hospital staff, in the minds of doulas, in the minds of families, in the minds of funeral homes, because actually there are 41 states that allow families to take care of their own dead. And if that would have helped you to have her at home, to dress her in her clothing, to have cuddled her in your arms, put her in your crib, I'm just guessing that you sound like that would have been a really important, special time for you.
Very important time, because it just goes back to that being a parent to her and creating those memories. I would have just had that much more time, instead of her room being a place. And of course it was a place of sorrow, because you look into the empty crib and there's no baby, but at least if I had brought her home, then I could have had a memory of at least she got to be in her crib, and she got to be there with her brother, and I could have tangible pictures to show to Ian that this is your sister. Remember, because he's older now, he's 5. And so he can start to understand, oh yeah, I have a sister, she's, her name's Claire, and here I am, I'm holding her. Whereas now it's still very abstract for him to understand.
And that makes perfect sense. Now, we're not suggesting that everyone will take their babies home for a while, but do they know it's an option, and should it be offered? With encouragement to do it, absolutely. I'm not sure if I would have had the courage. You sound like you have more courage than I would have had. But in any case, so those are some of the thoughts and reasons why we would like to suggest you slow it down and ask yourself and ask your community and ask your staff members that you associate with, what is the rush here, unless it's an emergency? Let's talk about the birth vision, the birth preferences plan. Who can we create a birth preferences plan for? Who deserves the right to have a vision of how it's going to go? Anyone who has a loss, whether it's a miscarriage, a stillbirth, a baby who's going to maybe die in the NICU. What about even, we might change the name of it, but what about someone who's had a baby die of SIDS? And that last death scene happened in their hospital with police there and just all the trauma. What if they could have had someone talk with them about a plan? Name it something else, it's okay. But the plan could then have been about how to be with their baby after the autopsy, maybe even during the hospital. Maybe that companion could have shown up while they're in the ER. And maybe even the conversation, like Carrie was talking about, having Claire at home for a while. What if they could have brought their baby home and calmed that death scene and put the baby back in the crib and held the baby in their arms to just get back some of the memories of the comforting time and the beautiful time, not the traumatic time. So why create a birth preferences plan? Why help them have a vision? By the way, we call it preferences because we don't want them to get married to the concept that here's a plan, Because inevitably when they go to the hospital and they have that birth or they have that labor or the family are there or not there, something goes wrong. So we like to call it a vision or a preferences plan. Parents can learn their options during this conversation. They can have time to think about decisions and what's to come. Some preparation helps them to gain control. And you know what else it does? It gives them some time to ease a little bit of that shock. Instead of being the deer in the headlights, instead of being in the middle of the accident scene, they can take a few steps away. They get to buy some time. Someone else can guide them then. And this is, again, a difference between a doula who doesn't necessarily guide at the time of the birth like you would do, but rather in this situation would offer some guidance, because most people haven't had the preparation of months of knowing they're pregnant to make a plan. In fact, what they may have is an hour, they may have 4 hours, they may have a day. They're not going to have probably much more time than that. It helps them to know that they are not alone, because when we help them plan, create this vision, we tell stories. We tell stories of other people. The daddy who stayed with his baby in the hospital for 3 days. Sue talks about that, 3 days. And he was the one who said, "Are you kidding me? I can't imagine more than a couple of minutes." He was appalled by the dad who did it for 2 days. But when hearing that, it gave him permission, and now he stayed with his baby for 3 days. So that's the new story that Sue can tell when she helps people birth plan. And the staff can get a feeling ahead of time of what the vision is like, so that birth plan is faxed over or delivered to the labor and delivery staff. Or in the case of Heather and Alan, it could have been delivered to the day surgery center. These are the things that are important to Heather and Alan. They want to take the remains of their baby home with them. They don't want testing. Those were important things to them. She wanted someone with her at all times, and she wanted me to speak for her if she couldn't, because she was shaking and very upset, and so she gave us the power, to do that in the birth plan that I helped her to create. And it's important to know some of what parents want and what parents need. Suzanne Poland did an internet study of 580 parents and learned a tremendous amount. You might want to check into that. You can go to my website, babiesremembered.org, and I will have information for you there to dig in deeper if you want. But 93% of the women, most of whom had a stillbirth, said that it was the worst thing that ever happened to them. So don't let anyone tell you that this is a minor event or they'll get over it quickly. They won't. It's the worst thing that ever happened to almost 100% of the moms that interviewed in this study. 70% said that the way that they were given the news negatively impacted their grieving process. We have to get to the news givers. We have to help them to understand that. But I think if the news givers had also shown them, the video that I talked about, or hook them up with a companion, a baby loss doula, someone, a peer support, someone who'd had a similar diagnosis, a staff member who gets it and maybe could help them, maybe this would have decreased, because it could have counterbalanced that negativity. They would have shortly after hearing the news known what is to come and how to grieve this, how to live through this, because most of us just really want to pretty much die, pretty much give up, go to sleep, be done, not face it. And so it's real important that preparation and awareness be taught. And 75% wanted connection to someone with a similar diagnosis immediately. And 71% wished for peer support immediately. And I think that's a very important thing for us to be aware of. So what do parents need and want? And then I'm going to go to Carrie, because I see her nodding her head. They want to be affirmed as a parent, not a medical patient. They want to be fully informed, including the pros and the cons of what can happen. Don't be paternalistic. Don't tell them what they should do. Tell them the short term, but also the medium to longer term. You may regret this. Parents tell us they regret these things that they said no to, so that they make their own decisions, including to help them understand, as I say, that present and that keeping that future in mind. They can't keep the future in mind, but if they're told about the future through stories of other people, it may help them realize, I can't just try to protect myself from the pain right now. I need to do something that's really hard, because it might be harder later. And to be given as much control as possible, so that they feel that, because they feel they have none. But not to be asked open-ended questions. Please do not ask open-ended questions. Would you like a picture? Would you like to be on the same floor with moms and babies, or would you like to be transferred to med-surg or to the oncology or to, GYN? How do you answer that? We don't know how to answer that. We need help learning how to answer that. So therefore, we need to know the consequences, the pros and cons, the stories, and the why. And this one is really big for me. That's why I wrote Empty Arms. That's why I listen carefully to what people tell me. In fact, I heard a story today, and if there's enough time, I'll share that story. But to be given appropriate written materials. Appropriate means not about grief that they're going to need in 6 weeks, not about what's going to happen to them in a year, but about what's going to happen to them now and what decisions they're facing now. It would be a little like saying to someone, oh, you're going to have a baby. Let me pile on some information here about private high schools and college preparation. Are you kidding me? I can't think about that. I have to think about having a baby right now. So we need to give them appropriate written materials and other means to retain information, since, do you know that most people cannot retain information by hearing that about 1% of people, on a good day, not in crises, not in the middle of an accident, about 1% retain information only through hearing. So now ask yourself, how are you imparting information to these families? Are you speaking it and expecting them to hear you and then to answer? Or, in fact, are you giving them thoughts about the future and the pros and the cons and some pause and maybe only asking about one thing at a time? Are you asking them to repeat it to you? Are you showing them a video or a YouTube? Are you asking them to read a book like Empty Arms, just the section about decision making, or When Hello Means Goodbye? What you do and the part you play here is really important. Carrie, do you want to share some thoughts here?
Yeah, the stats that you had there about the initial connection that families need to make, that's so true, because in that moment, you want to see somebody that lived it and survived, because in that moment you think you're not going to survive. And so I definitely agree with, and I actually might say maybe a little higher. I know she said, and she did her study, of course, but I think that's pretty true for a lot of people. And then something else you had mentioned about.
Do you want me to go back so we can take a
maybe.
look at those?
Let's see. No, go. It is that one right there. Let's see.
This one?
You were saying something about. I'm so sorry. I lost
Written
my thought.
material or.
Just making sure that you're giving it to them in lots of different ways so that they do understand, and giving them, and that control is so important, because you're completely powerless. And I'm only speaking for myself, of course, but I think a lot of women want to be in control, and you're simply not in that environment, right. And wanting to give them the tools that they need so that they can feel like they are in control of something,
right,
is really important.
Okay, thanks. And if you think of something else, just feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit more about the birth preferences plan and the vision. Some of the topics to be covered, by no means is this all of them, but some of them to be covered. But see, a person needs to be trained to do this well, because if you just have a plan, a birth preferences plan, and you go item by item by item, you're not really listening. You're not really going with the flow. You don't really know what's important to these families and what's not. So we start with background and history, including other losses. What are their beliefs in their family? How do their family handle crises? What's their background about preparation for having a baby? Maybe they've had 3 other losses, and this is the farthest they got, and they're so excited about being this far, they just want to celebrate it and meet this baby. And they might be on a totally different page than you think they are at. So it's important to delve into that background. We actually have a couple of sample, our favorite birth preferences plans that we share with our baby loss doulas, and then ask them to always adapt it and not call it their, their final in stone piece of work that they have to go item by item on. We want to take a look at and ask mom and dad, what are your, not just your spiritual, your cultural, your ethnic, your religious needs and desires or requirements, But let's go even further. Your personal needs, desires, and requirements. Maybe pictures are very, very important to this mother. She has pictures all over her house. How will you know that if you haven't been to her house? She snaps photos of everything. She puts them up on Facebook all the time. And so pictures are going to be very important, not just a picture of the baby, but pictures of this baby with their other children and in the arms of grandma and grandpa, and maybe pictures of the feet and the fingers and the ear. Maybe that's a good point. What about the baby are you looking forward to meeting, or seeing, investigating? You want to see the baby's eyes open. Oh, so many mothers tell us they did not think to open up the eyes, and what a shame that they missed that. So it's not just their desires, but also what about them is unique. If they have some spiritual belief that you can't see, maybe they're not a Muslim, maybe they're not Jewish, and you might get a handle in your mind about what they might want, but be careful, because that doesn't mean that this mom and dad want that. But at least it gives you a grounding of a place to ask questions of. But maybe they're, I don't know, Catholic, and they believe that life begins at conception, and they don't wear that on their forehead, and you don't know that, and they didn't tell you that. And so the way that you handle this miscarriage must be very respectful, and they absolutely don't want that baby's remains to go to the lab to be cut up. And maybe they really must take that baby with them and bury that baby, because it's a baby to them, even though they're only 6 or 8 or 10 weeks along. So investigating what their needs and desires and wishes and cultural, religious, etc. beliefs are.
And I have something I'd like to add with that.
Yes.
I think it's important to leave your biases at home in regards to people's backgrounds and cultures. That just goes back to what you were saying in terms of sometimes we can make assumptions on what people may or may not want, and it could be very different for that individual in that moment.
Right.
I even think, just to leave those biases at home and be really open with getting to know the family and really knowing what it is exactly that they want, not what you want, because it's not about you, it's about what the family wants and needs.
That's right. So being aware, very aware, but not being judgmental or bringing that to the table as an assumption. Don't make assumptions just because you see something or you know something. Always ask and investigate. And then to learn what their, thank you, Carrie, for that. Then to learn what their labor and birth wishes are. And then they're going to say to you, I have no clue. And that's where you put forward the options. Some people want pain medication, but they don't realize, oh my gosh, I'm so sad at this. I hear so many stories of mothers who say, I said I didn't want any pain. I was so out of it, I don't remember seeing my baby. I don't remember what she looked like except in pictures. I don't remember the birth moment. I don't remember who cut the cord. I have to ask people about that. I didn't mean I wanted to be out of it. I just meant I didn't want to feel lots of pain. There are medications that can help minimize or cut down on the pain, but that don't take away one's memory. So it's very, very important to be aware and thoughtful and present that kind of information about what their choices are with labor and birth. Who should be there? What family members should be there? Meeting the baby, ideas for how to meet the baby, what their preferences might be. Do they want to be a part of taking the footprints? Do they want daddy to get daddy a role here? Do they want to have daddy maybe hold the baby while the nurse does the footprints and the baby loss doula, or the companion is also hanging on to or holding the paper or something. So it becomes a joint family affair with people participating. Explain the difference between a baptism and a blessing and a naming ceremony. Maybe they need a baptism, maybe they don't. If the baby has already died and they're okay with their theology and what their priest might be saying, maybe they don't want one. Maybe a blessing would do, but maybe they do want one. So the pros and cons of that. What about the family who's sitting in the waiting room? What is their role, and how can they be involved? Because they're the ones that will be supporting this family over time. And how do they want to say goodbye? What wishes do they have? Getting them some materials on services, and like our little Planning a Precious Goodbye booklet, for instance, that, and Bittersweet Hello Goodbye, which is a huge book. They offer poems and prose and hymns and readings and Bible verses, and so there's just lots of songs, lots of things that can be helpful to them as they plan their service. And then we've already talked a little bit about bringing the baby home, or maybe they just want to drive their baby themselves to the funeral home. So making sure that we have options like that can be available. Anything else that you want to say about that before we move on to memory making?
Well, I think the important part with the birth preference plan is that it does give you an opportunity to think things through and to digest what's being told. In our particular case, I think my husband was forgotten a little bit, and he was busying himself, and that's kind of how he coped. And so he didn't have a lot of time spent with Claire in the hospital. But if we were able to maybe slow things down a little bit and been able to help him kind of think this through and have someone say to him, I have found other families that have regretted not having this time, because he does have regrets now in regards to the time that he did or did not spend with Claire. And so that birth preference plan, I think the fathers tend to get forgotten in the shuffle of things.
And don't you think that dads are in the mode of thinking they're the protector, they're the strong one, you're on the bed, the baby's died, all the energy is going towards you, and so that's a natural role, but it's also, for lack of anything better, the role that they fall into. So what could a nurse or a social worker or a baby loss doula have said to Eric, to help him to be engaged more, and not to take away that role, but to also remind him that he's the parent too?
Just reminding him that he's the parent too.
Okay.
And to be able to share with him that their experience with other families have been, there's been some regret when it has come to not taking the time to, be part of parenting your child while they're here.
Right. And I think dad is giving all the care and mom is receiving all the care, but sometimes what happened actually in our relationship and in some other folks' relationship, I know, is in the beginning when he couldn't say the words on the telephone and I could. I remember sitting up a little taller, though in the midst of my tears, and thinking, we're going to make it. We're going to make it, because not only am I just, this victim on the bed here, a puddle in the middle of the Grand Canyon of pain that I have, but I was able to get up enough energy and courage to talk on that phone and give to David. Okay, we're going to be a team. It didn't feel so, he's taking care of me and I just might end up dying, because I don't know if I can live. And so I gained some confidence, and I gained just a little bit of self-respect by being able to give to him. And I don't think that dads quite understand that. I don't think they realize that if they allow a little of their humanness and their pain to occur in front of you, that maybe you'll step up and be able to give a little bit to him.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's switch on over to memory making, which is a part of that birth planning, and it's a very important piece here. It's a key to healing over time. If you think about it, I remember after my grandpa died, my grandma just kept telling the story over and over of what happened and who said what, and what was going on in the hospital and what happened previously. And I remember thinking, I don't understand why you keep saying this. I've heard this already. Well, then my son Brennan died, and I realized that's how we heal. That's how we love them. That's how we remember them. It's telling those stories over and over. It's remembering what happened and who they were and how we told people we were pregnant in the first place. And it seems like we have so few memories when a child dies in miscarriage or stillbirth or in the NICU after a little while, or even of a baby who didn't live very long and dies suddenly like a SIDS or some other reason, choking, who knows. And so it's our goal to be their parent for the lifetime. And so it's memories that we make at the time. And I thought it might be interesting to think about the difference between mementos, which we need lots of because we have none or very little of. So those are the important items that bring specialness to our hearts and attach us to each other, attach us to our babies and to the mom and dad and the family. We all kind of go to these mementos, and they bring us reminders, and it's something tangible to hold. So it's like remembering our baby, but also what happened. And then there are rituals. Rituals are ceremonies and special activities and events such as the blessing or the baptism, the memorial service, maybe naming. Even the ritual of cutting the cord could be a very, very special, made special, on purpose, intentional ritual. So what can we do to help there be rituals and to stretch what those rituals might be? And then the memories are the people. They're what people said. The staff, our companion, our family members, and how they acted and the gifts they give. The gifts of words, the gifts of touch, the gifts of comfort, the gifts of mementos, the gifts of being beside us in silence, the gifts of touch, and it all boils down to relationships. Carrie, I see you looking like you want to add a little bit here. Do you?
Oh, when you were saying memories, I would have to say one of my fondest memories was with my nurse Shelley when we took a lock of Claire's hair and she very carefully and delicately wrapped a little bow around her hair, and I can show that to you guys in a little bit. But I just remember so much care and respect that she took to just get it so perfect, and that memory just resonates with me to this day.
Yep, it's things like that that really, they just really speak to us. I'll never forget, I think her name is Naomi, because I leaned in and said, I need to see your name tag, because I'm one of those 99% who do not hear by listening. I have to be engaged, I have to speak, I have to see, I have to read, I need many things in order for me to really retain. And it was actually when my mother died, and what she was saying to my sister's husband was really impactful and important. And basically what she was saying is, no, this isn't something that you can get over quickly, because he was making motions like that. She said, this is a really important person in your life who is about to die. And it's going to take you a long time. So cherish the memories and speak her name. And she was just going on and on really specifically. And I had already had a baby die. I'd had 2 babies die. And I knew that what she was saying was right. And so I leaned over and I said, Naomi, thank you for saying that. Because he was trying to pull my dad out, I think, and like, let's kind of get out of here and be done with this. And, you know, you need to be thinking about something else, Keith. And I said, oh, Naomi, thank you for saying that. You're so right. We need to listen to that. Well, that's a special connection with someone who really got it and was really trying to help us. So being that memories are a key to healing over time, why are they important, especially with miscarriage, stillbirth, neonatal loss? I'm going to add here, I forgot to earlier say it specifically, I even mean the termination of a wanted pregnancy. Those families are in between a rock and a rock, and they have all of their own guilt and society's guilt that will be poured upon them, and they know it's coming. But that baby was going to die, or something was terribly wrong, and so those families are important too. Well, the reason that we who have our babies only with us for a little bit of time, that we need a special emphasis on mementos and memories and rituals, is because we don't get 50 years with them. We don't get 20 years with them. We don't even get 10 years with them. So we have to make mountains out of these moments. They're very, very important. The story I will tell you real briefly that I heard from someone today is of a woman who had a couple of losses at a really wonderful hospital where she read empty arms, decision making. The staff knew how to help her. They did amazing, fantastic, wonderful memory making with her. They were right on, they got it. And then she moved to Michigan, and she was at a hospital there where she had a 19-weeker. And they did nice care, but none of those sorts of things. And this mom was telling Susan, it's different. It's really different. I'm finding it very hard to grieve. I'm finding it very hard to get through this. I'm finding it very difficult to know how to move forward. It wasn't so hard when we did it well. It's really hard when we know we missed all these important things. And so it is important. You know, that's one of thousands and thousands of stories. The difference between regrets and minimal regrets. The difference between being taught on a multi-dimensional way, not just by speaking it by one caring person, that we be taught, these parents be taught, the families, the grandparents be taught, how to collect the memories and to understand that that's what these families have for the rest of their lives. That's the foundation of healing that they're building upon right now. So mementos might be footprints, handprints, lock of hair, baby rings, hearts, stones, jewelry. Journaling, rituals, pregnancy memories, including the charts, maybe the chart, their medical chart or the kick counting charts, and their ultrasounds. I did not hardly see Brennan. My husband and I held him for a couple of minutes. We got no footprints, no lock of hair, no mementos of any kind, no pictures. And I thought I had none. But then I went back and looked at the bear that had been given at the shower and the book that I made for him and the tears poem and, you know, the picture of me pregnant and the little special things that were given as gifts. So at least I have some, but I don't have what others have. And I guess before we even dig into, well, let's do it, the contemporary way to honor and remember one's babies, because then, Carrie, you can be the hook into how this relates. I see lots and lots of families right now doing tattoos. And in fact, Carrie, I think you might want to add in a little bit about the tattoos and also share some of your mementos.
Yeah, so the top one is my husband's tattoo. We had planned originally for the two of us to get our tattoos done on her birthday, but I was pregnant with my rainbow baby, Lainey, and so I waited and got mine done that following Christmas. But it was good because for me, I know she's always with me, but I at least have like a tangible thing that she's always walking alongside me. And it's a good conversation too, because it prompts people to say, oh, what is that on your foot? And it gives me an opportunity to speak of her and have other people recognize that, you know, I have another daughter. Right. So that's really sweet. And my husband's, I think, is beautiful. And it was one of those things that we just knew we would do. And I never thought I would have a tattoo. And I always would say, well, if I were to get a tattoo, it would have to be something that I could live with for the rest of my life. And I could live with her feet on my feet for the rest of my life.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That is so beautiful. And thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that with us and the world here.
Yeah.
Yes. So what about mementos and pictures, things you have and things now in retrospect you wish you had?
Yeah, I think I have in this box, these are, you know, my most prized possessions that I have here in this box. And I could just show you, I had talked about the lock of hair of Claire's, and I can show that to you as well. Mm-hmm. And you can see how, you know, how delicate.
Oh, she has dark hair.
Oh, very dark
really
hair.
Dark hair.
Yeah. She had really dark, long hair. And I would say, you know, thinking of just one more thing that I think I would have liked to have done is, you know, just to be able to like wash and play with her hair. Like I'm just, you know, I'm that kind of mom. Like and with my siblings, I have two younger sisters. I was always like, give me your hair, let me play with it, let me braid it, let me do all these things for you.
So does that mean you didn't bathe her?
No, we didn't.
Did anyone bathe her?
No.
Because usually staff tell me that every baby gets a bath, and what sometimes happens, which is really unfortunate, is that the staff takes the baby out of the room and bathes the baby, and so they got to parent her and the parents like you didn't, and so bathing is really important, and it's something that you and Eric could have done together with the help of that nurse or by yourself.
I think that they were concerned because she had probably been deceased in my stomach for close to 2 days. And so they were, I mean, just, you know, that in retrospect, because I had gone to them and said, you know, why didn't we give a bath? And they said, you know, we really should have, and this is what we could have done. And they do things differently now. Good. But yes, you're right. I didn't get, when I had brought a 4th of July outfit, she's a 4th of July baby, and had the outfit all picked, ready to go, and said I wanted her to be in this outfit. And the nurse took her out of the room, got her in the outfit, and brought her back. So
again, the nurse parented your baby and dressed your baby, and you didn't get to.
No, and even if I was unsure about doing it myself, I think that the nurse could have said, well, here, let's do it together. Let me help you. And, you know, rather than, and then one thing that still really bothers me too is that I wanted the outfit, so they gave me the outfit. And I even had another outfit because I wasn't expecting her, she was, you know, overdue. And so the outfit I had picked for her to go home in was not a 4th of July outfit. I was just prepared and just knew, okay, she should be here by the 4th of July. She has to have a cute outfit. And so when she went to the mortuary, I don't know what she was in. And I just know she's probably in an ugly T-shirt and a diaper, where she could have been in the cute outfit that she ended up being cremated in.
Right.
You know, so just to, if someone would have said, well, do you have something else that you would like me to put her in?
Right.
You know, because it just mortifies me that she was even, you know, delivered in that way. And some people wouldn't care about a T-shirt and a diaper, but
you had a different vision.
I had a different vision.
And if I were your baby loss doula, I would have had a conversation with you about clothing.
Right.
So what clothing would you want to bring to the hospital? Do you picture her in some clothing? Well, you know, would you want to do that by yourself? Be thinking about it. And I might not even ask for an answer. I might just say, be thinking about if that's something that you and Eric want to do in the privacy of the room, close the door. Or if you could want to do it at home because you're going to deliver the baby to the funeral home yourself, you know, after having been at home. And do you have other outfits? Or what about hats? What about little ribbons? What about some of those headbands? Do you have any of those kinds of things that you might be wanting to see her in? Because I'm going to suggest, as your baby loss doula, that you are going to want tons of pictures.
Right.
I have met people who've had none, like myself. I have met people who just recently got, you know, 7. Was that you? Did you get 7? Someone just emailed me. It was Hillary. Hillary said we got 7 pictures, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, a lifetime you only get to look at. The rest of your life, you only get to look at 7. What if we could have done hundreds? You know, it's not like the old days. With digital, we can do lots and lots. So that's the kind of way that a companion or a birth preferences planner or a baby loss doula could have had a conversation with you about getting you thinking about clothing in those outfits.
Yep.
What else?
Let's see. She saved the little comb and the bracelet that. Now she combed her hair. That was another thing. I don't remember ever combing.
The nurse did.
The nurse did. I don't remember combing her hair myself. And I just love these because my sister-in-law got these little booties.
Oh,
I don't know if you can see that.
cute.
And it has
it
Claire's
has Claire
name on
it.
them. And it would have been so cute just to have that at the hospital and have a cute little picture of her bum, because now my daughter Lainey has the exact one, but it says Elena because that's her real name is Elena. So that would have been really neat. And then in here I have her hand prints and her footprints, the cast and molds, and just really appreciate the handprint because this is all that we have. Her skin was so fragile that they weren't able to make any prints of her hands.
But it's a 3-dimensional, and that's really nice.
And I decided to paint it myself, and it was really kind of therapeutic, you know, to do that. And so those are her hands. And then
let's put that on the counter here. I'd hate to see that go down.
It fell. Yeah, very true. And then her footprints. Her little foot there.
Oh, cute.
So, like I said, my most prized possessions can fit in this little box. However, we have a big hope chest. My dad is his hobby is he's a craftsman, and he made a beautiful hope chest full of stuff. It's full of lots of things that we've acquired over the years, and special things that were given just to her that I saved for her. A lot of her things Lainey got to wear and use almost all of her things, and so that was nice to be able to see that. But there were some things that were just special that were just for Claire, and they're in that hope chest as well.
And your picture?
And this is Claire right after she was born.
She just looks like she's going to kick any second.
She does, yeah, just, you know, really healthy. And my mother-in-law has always said it would have been nice if they had
the blanket.
A nice blanket there, because that's how they handed her to me, was in this petty pad, which was awful. It was
I am so sorry.
So that's how she was handed to me, was in the petty pad, and then they laid her in here. But it would be nice if the machine was on to show how much she weighed, because that's such a common picture that you have from your live babies.
How much did she weigh?
She was 9 pounds, or 7 pounds 9 ounces.
Okay. So to have that picture with that the numbers showing would have been good.
It would have been nice.
And so if I were your baby loss doula or companion, and I were there with you, and this is how I think maybe it's different. I don't know. I've not been a doula, but I think what I would have done is, if I saw the nurse doing that, I would have very respectfully but gently said, "Oh, could we wrap her up in the blanket first before we give her to mom?" Not to wrap the baby up, but to have her sitting in a blanket, not in something so shiny and medical looking as that. And so I would have maybe transferred her, or I would have said, "Carrie, would you, we're going to hand you the baby shortly here, would you like to just have the baby straight out, lie in that anyway, or do you want me to wrap her in the blanket. And I would have given you that choice.
Yeah.
And maybe you would have said one or maybe you would have said the other. But I would have tried to engage you in it, and I would have tried to gently rearrange things so that the memory that you held onto in your head was not of the nurse handing her to you in that medical, cold looking.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that, I think, is a very different kind of role, you know, that someone who understands loss, and that every single thing that we do here really does kind of matter.
Yeah.
Not just what we're saying, because that matters too, not the words so much, but the intention. And if the intention is, okay, Carrie and Eric, you're mom and dad, and this is your baby. It's not the hospital's baby. It's not the nurse's baby. It's not my baby. It's not the doula's baby. So to that point then, what can I be thinking that would help honor that and honor your parenthood? So I would be asking you questions in a real loving, permission-giving, why not do this kind of way. Oh, the nurse is heading out the door with the baby. Excuse me just one second, but I'm going to talk to Carrie about that. Are you going to go give her a bath? What if Carrie and Eric could do that bath? Can you bring the water in here?
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures, but I have seen some amazing pictures of babies who are suspended in water, like in the umbilical sac. I'm sorry, in the sac, you know, when the cord was still attached, but now the cord is not attached, and so we've got this baby in water. They plump up and they become just more full and beautiful looking even than when they're out of the water. And so I feel like, you know, you missed that. And especially those smaller babies, when they plump up, and so the difference is amazing. It's not the skin, the sinking skin that looks a little bit more skeletal-like, because those babies don't have the fat yet. So putting them in that water, but explaining what we're going to do and using it as, you know, it's much like your baby being in the sac inside of you in your womb. What do you think if we would have, you know, proposed doing that? What are your thoughts about that?
I think that would have been really nice to have the opportunity to do that, most definitely.
Okay, cool. All right, well, so thank you. What other mementos do you wish you might have liked to have received, or experiences in the hospital?
I think like the big one is just having that chance to be her parent instead of the nurses being the ones that got to do that.
Okay.
That's the big one for me.
Okay.
I mean, I had great care and had a wonderful nurse, and you know, I do have some, you know, really wonderful things to remind me of her, and memories and mementos and that kind of thing. But I just don't think I had enough guidance in terms of, and I didn't even know, I was afraid that I would hurt her. I remember holding her and kind of touching her little nose, and it kind of seeped a little bit, and that scared me, and I was afraid to unravel her, so I didn't get a chance, or didn't have anyone even really guiding me to say, let's undress her, let's look at every part of her body, let's, you know,
open her
eyes, and, you know,
look behind her ears and take a picture of her ears and her toes. And,
yeah, still not enough pictures, and that was a big thing too, is my mom was really good about saying, you know, maybe you really should do pictures, because again, I was like, no, that seems kind of morbid to take pictures of your dead baby, but but going back to that, not wanting to regret, you know, down the road, you can't go back and do things down the road that you would have rather have done that day.
No, you can't. And if I were your companion or baby loss doula, I think I would have, I know I would have real specifically said, let me explain a little bit about seepage. Or if the nurse was in the room, I might have said to the nurse, could you explain a little bit about seepage to her? Because I might try to stay away from some of the medical things, but I wouldn't be afraid to do that if it hasn't been done. The nurse is gone, we're spending more time here, you touch the nose, you know, you see a little bit of seepage. You know, that's a normal thing that happens. And just like when your baby's alive and you wipe the baby's nose, you know, we do that now here. It's just, again, it's a normal thing of parenthood. It's just a little bit different because your baby happens to have died. And I think one of the important things to recognize here is that these are loved babies who were alive, who are now loved babies that happen to have died. Love is what matters here, not alive or dead in terms of how we treat them. but it's loved babies. And so I think you would have felt my intention coming through clearly, that this is a loved baby. We just got to love her up, and I would be patting, and I would be, with your permission, probably giving little kisses, and just like I would do with someone's baby who was alive, because you deserve that kind of respect as a mother, and your baby deserves that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And again, if you want to jump in here, we have a few more minutes, so feel free if something comes up. So that idea of bringing baby home after death, this is Carrie with Claire, and thank you again for sharing that picture with us. And this is little Alex and his brother, holding him in a loving, kind of curious way, and Margie is overseeing that. That could have been done at home. That could have been done in the privacy of the home. In this case, it was done in a funeral home. But why not? Are children comfortable in a hospital? Are children comfortable in a funeral home? And so if we could, like hospice, bringing death back to the home, if we could remember that our great-grandparents and all generations prior to that many Native Americans, many indigenous cultures, the Amish, people in developing countries, people in New Zealand, people in Holland, for Pete's sakes, they have their babies, their loved ones, at home often after death. It's just a common thing to do. So we have to get over that hump and say, just like hospice, can we be bringing some of that aftercare, after death care home with us, and allow people to do in the privacy of their own home what they wouldn't do at a funeral home and they might not do at a hospital. I'd like to share some resources with you very quickly. Some support resources for families, National Share, the Miss Foundation. There are so many. I have 27 pages in one of my e-magazines. So I'm just picking a few here. Books and media, visuals, gifts, you can find them at A Place to Remember, at Centering Corporation, at Grief Watch. Funeral and burial assistance, I mean money to stillborn babies, for example. From the Tears Foundation, from Angel Names, we have a good list of organizations that will donate money when people can't afford it. They donate it to the funeral home or to the crematorium or to where a family would be buying a stone maybe. Some more resources that I'm more involved with too are Loss Doulas International. That's our certification program, and a place for you to find baby loss doulas in case you're looking for someone that you want to call upon to help you as a doula, as a midwife, whatever your role here is. You don't need to do it alone, and certainly you may not feel adequately prepared to be the person to do this with families yet. Babies Remembered is my website, and there are books and media and gifts and e-magazines. I've mentioned a few of them previously. There are some really important awareness and prevention groups and things that are happening right now. I invite you to go to stillbirthasap.org and to know that is a coalition of organizations trying to raise awareness, trying to stop babies from dying. And it's a growing coalition of individuals. We'd invite your membership. I'm on the steering committee, and we are not another organization. We aren't collecting money. We are just really trying to help you do your work better and help organizations do their work better. The StarLegacyFoundation.org is a group that has a lot of good work with, prevention and education, and they are key members of the StopStillbirthASAP.org. First Candle is also one. I realize I should have put up a few more, firstcandle.org. The Still Project is something that's really very, very exciting. That is a couple out of California, Jonathan and Carrie, had a baby die at 22 weeks, and they are creating a documentary, full-length documentary, that will go to film festivals and will raise awareness like nothing you've ever seen before for miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss of any kind. And they are beautiful people who are sharing our message and trying to get the word out there that this is very important and it matters. And we need to band together, and our families and communities need to realize that these babies count and they matter. And then Return to Zero, the movie. That is a movie that, depending upon when you watch this, will be out within the year, 2013, or maybe if it's after when you watch this, that you can go rent as a video. It's a Hollywood movie produced by a dad who, he and his wife had a baby die. So Minnie Driver and Paul Edelstein are starring in that, and it may be a first chance for us to get it into movie theaters and host a gathering and get people in our community to realize that when a baby dies, it's very big, it's life-changing. Couples change, the workplace, how we view life, how we view our families, everything changes. We are not the same person we were any longer. I'd like to share this thought with you. Some of us will raise a call to action. We see what went wrong and want to make it right. Some of us will weave words into memorials because our babies were the most beautiful poems we ever wrote. And some of us will help the world remember the gift that they were in our lives, even if they never took a breath, because not a single one of us will ever forget them. That's an excerpt from The Secret Club, which is a beautiful website and comes from a book by Suzanne Pullen in memory of her son Avery. Families get no do-overs. I can't go back and take pictures. I can't go back and get mementos. Carrie can't go back and have her baby Claire at home, and Elise, all the things she could have done with her little miscarried baby Elise, which I realize we hardly talked about. We don't get do-overs. And so it's very, very important that if you're going to help someone who has a baby die, a miscarriage, a stillbirth, a baby that lives in the NICU for a while, that a baby who, they terminate a pregnancy, a loved baby, a baby where they continue the pregnancy, and they get to do some really more extensive birth planning, that whoever helps us gets it, knows what we need, knows how to help us, has been trained, and most importantly, or as importantly, I guess, knows the resources, because families will now need to be hooked into resources in the community and on the web and literature and such things as that. So, because families get no do-over, we want you to be sure that you know really how to help us well, that you can help families as a wise, compassionate, fully informed, well-prepared loss doula that goes beyond being a doula. And so I want to close by thanking you and asking you to remember that this is all the time families get, and the way you help is very important, and who you hook them into and connect them up with really will be the key to how they face this loss and how they go forward. And so I thank you and want you to know that you do make a difference, and for that we appreciate you and are very, very grateful.